Welcome to the MFSQL Connector continuation of the webinar on practical examples. This is about working through the examples, and let's continue with the practical session. Of the series of practical sessions, you'll be able to validate the installation, work with the metadata structure, create and delete and update the class tables, create value list item lookups, get records from M files, and insert records into M files. Note that the example SQL scripts that I will be using in the following sessions are available as a separate download. Let's get started. So the first module is about connecting the connection test, update the connection settings in case there is a problem with the connection, how to synchronize the metadata, creating your first class table, and updating that class table. Let's begin.
So just starting up my SSMS, and let me just close some of the databases that we have there. I have installed the connector in the MFSQL sample demo vault, a database that now have all of the code of the connector. So it basically would load a whole bunch of tables, it would load some views, and it will install a whole range of procedures as part of the installation process. So we're not going to go into detail in terms of that. What we're really going to do is to pick up at the point where the installation is completed, and we now need to start. And let me start by just opening up my first script. And the first thing that you want to do when you start off is by executing one of the special procedures, which is SP Vault connection test. So if I execute that procedure, then it would run through and it would tell me whether I have a successful connection or not. Let's force an error. So I'm going to basically go in and reset the name of the user, and let's try and do another test. So if I now basically go in and I test it again, it will try to connect, and in a moment it would give me an error message that it is not connecting. So basically it's tried to connect with a .NET framework, can't connect with it, and it says I'm not happy. So when you effectively get this message, it is highly likely that there is something wrong with your with the settings that you have put in the installation for connecting to the vault. So what you can do is you can first of all use the view that we've created to go and have a look at the settings, to go and see what you've actually done. You know, is the settings as you expected? What's the username? Password is obviously encrypted, so you can't necessarily read the password, but the network address and so forth, and see whether those settings is correct. If those settings are not correct, then you can use a procedure, and I've had a short form of that procedure there, where I have reset the username to actually make it work. But if you look at that procedure in its entirety, you'll see that that is the procedure with a declaration and all of the variables that it actually provides. Now, I've produced this little script by going into the my program ability on SQL. I go down to my procedure that I have, which is SPMF settings for Vault. And if I right click it, I actually go into script store procedures. I execute to, and I say to a new window, I get that little script snippet that gives me all the parameters and it is ready for me to use. So all that I need to do is I basically need to use the one that I want to change. You do not have to basically fill in all of the detail. If you know which detail is wrong, all that you do is you replace that. So what we can do is we can just put in, I think I'm working with demo user. So if I put that in and I run that script again, that's been done correctly. So let's go and test it again. And we're back in business. So that is very important, because unless you basically ensure that you have a connection to your vault, there is nothing that will happen. So we solved that problem. Next thing is that we need to synchronize the metadata. Now, what does that mean? When you basically install the application, it installs a range of tables, a class table. It installs the object types. It installs the properties, and it installs a table for the value lists and the value list items. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't populate those tables with the structure. So what this procedure does, it pulls all the information from M files and puts it into SQL, so that you can use that in SQL to do many things. And it's obviously the foundation and the heart of what you are working with. It's important to note that the metadata is not automatically refreshed, because that would just put unnecessary load onto the server to continue to poll to actually find out whether there's any changes. So what we have done is we've created procedures so that when a change has been made, all that you need to do is you just need to refresh that. And there's a number of different methods that I will show you as we go down the track. This is all being completed. So the metadata is now refreshed. And if I do a select on the MF class table, you will see that what it has done is it loaded all of the classes, the MF IDs of that classes. It also indicated what is the object type, if there's any workflow associated with it. But it also has a number of additional columns that we are going to find very, very handy when we start to work with it in SQL. Most importantly, we have a table name. So this column effectively is automatically set by the synchronized metadata, but it is a customizable column. And this is the table name that it will use to indicate or to reference the name of the class or that particular class of data. So if I look at customers and I want to get all of the customers in SQL, then it's going to create a table with the name of MF customer. This included in app, we will refer several times to that, because that is really an operating column which indicates which tables are being used in the app. Now, the approach is basically is that when you are building an app or you want to work with certain data in SQL, you don't want to work with all of the classes and all of the data that is in M files. You want to select what you want to work with, whether it's customers or whether it is a particular document. So it really doesn't matter which class you're working with, but what you can do is you can select the classes that you want to work with. Just want to, so this is about the classes. I just want to very briefly talk about the properties that it added. So again, it creates a table with all of the properties. It has the MF ID or the property ID, the name of the ID, obviously the aliases, and here is the column name that it will use in the tables that you can specify, or by default it's being structured, and only if there is an issue then you can actually change that column name, and I will again deal with that a little bit later again to come back to that. It would also indicate what's the data type and is it a predefined column. So a whole bunch of rules that is associated with it that effectively is being built in. And I also want to just briefly talk about the valueless items. And looking at that, we have a single table with all of the value list items. So for all of the value lists itself are all combined into one table. And this table then have a reference to the value list and to the individual item. So this is the structure that we've created to work with the value list items. Interestingly enough, you will be aware that an MFID for a particular value list item in a value list could be the same ID in another value list. So there is various ways that you can deal with that. But what we've done is we've created a thing called the AppRef, and the AppRef is a unique identifier across the whole table that effectively enable you to identify this particular property by using that AppRef instead of having to go through a join statement to address the individual value list item. So that is just a little bit about the structure and what has come through. There is also other ways to look at it. So there are also other structure tables like the object types, the value list, workflows, workflow states, login accounts, user accounts. So there is a number of other structure tables. I'm not going to go into that at this stage. We will touch on those tables when we start to use those tables. We've created a view that provide you with an ability to look at a particular, at any property from any dimension. Now in this case, I'm going to look at it from a class purchase invoice. So if I use that view, then effectively it pulls together class information, property information, value list information. All of the information is being pulled together so that you can explore it and look at it from a number of different dimensions. And depending on how complex your vault is, you can have many different aspects that this view can be very powerful to determine where is the item used. Where do I need to go and find all of the places where customer is being used and all those type of applications. Just another example. And we're going to work a lot with customer. So I'm going to just show you the customer. So in the customer's case, this is all of the properties for the customer that when we want to look at the table and create a table for the class, then we will need all of these columns in that table. It is extremely easy. All that you need to do is you need to use this execute SPMF create table procedure, and when I execute that procedure, the table has been created. I can go and do a select statement, and if I do a select statement, you will see that that table has been created. If I actually go in here, then my MF customer table is there, and with all of the columns, and for it with all of the data types created in a very specific way. I'm going to talk about all of the different columns when we start to use that, but it is extremely powerful that when you basically have created the structure from M files and you want to create your class table, it is literally a second and then you have that class table. If I go back to my MF class table that houses all my information about the classes, what you will see, it now have indicated that this table have been included in the app. So it marked it with 1 and we know that we have a table. What I actually want to reiterate, and that is that table itself does not yet have any data in it. So how do we get that data in? We use another statement, which is called SPMF update table. And if I execute that procedure, what it will do is it will run through, it will go and fetch that information from M files and it will populate the table. So there is all my records from M files. Now, if only you had to do what I have just done in a couple of seconds or minutes, you know, sort of 10 minutes. If you had to go and set up an API to go and fetch all of the information in M files so that you can work with that in SQL or in Excel or what you want to do, just to get to this point will take you significantly longer to go and do custom coding for it. And by the way, if you make a change to it, then you are faced with another change to your code. I will show you in a moment that how easy it is to deal with changes in the metadata structure that you may have.